Lesson number 66 is about simplification of radical expressions and square roots of large numbers. Now our first problem is to simplify. Square root of 18 plus the square root of 8. We're adding here, so we need to break down both of these numbers. If we're going to simplify or reduce the square root of 18, we could break that down into the square root of 9 times the square root of 2, because 9 times 2 is 18. Then we could say plus, well, the square root of 8 will be the square root of 4 times the square root of 2, and we can simplify both of these. The square root of 9 is 3, so we're going to get 3 times the square root of 2. Plus, well, the square root of 4, we know that, that's 2, so we're going to get 2 times the square root of 2. And then notice here, this one worked out really nicely because we've got the square root of 2 and the square root of 2, so we need to figure out how many square roots of 2 we have. We've got 3 square roots of 2, we've got 2 square roots of 2. That must give us our grand total of 5 square roots of 2, because 3 plus 2 is 5. And we've got our answer. We can box it and move on to our next question. Here we're going to simplify again. Square root of 27 minus 3 times the square root of 18 minus 6 times the square root of 45. So the square root of 27, that could be broken down into the square root of 9 times the square root of 3. Minus 3, well, the square root of 18, well, we just worked that one. That was the square root of 9 times the square root of 2. Minus 6 times the square root of 45. Well, the square root of 45 is really just, pardon me, going to be the square root of 9 times the square root of 5. Now that we've got all that, we can work from the beginning again to simplify. Square root of 9 is 3, so we're going to get 3 times the square root of 3. We can't break down the square root of 3, we know that, so we leave it as it is. Minus 3, well, the square root of 9 is 3, so 3 times 3 times the square root of 2. Minus 6, square root of 9, that's 3, so we're going to get 6 times 3 times the square root of 5. Let's simplify as we go again. We're going to get 3 times the square root of 3, that stays the same, minus 3 times 3, that's 9 times the square root of 2, minus 6 times 3 is, well, that must be 18. So we get 18 times the square root of 5. Now, we've got the square root of 3 over here, we've got the square root of 2 in the middle, and our right term is the square root of 5. None of those are the same. So, we're all done. We can't do anything else because we can't figure out anything more. We've got our final answer, we can box it, and move on to our next question. Here we need to simplify the square root of 50,000. Now, this is one of those square roots of large numbers. And the square root of 50,000, well, we should break that down into the square root of 5 times the square root of, well, 5 times 10,000 is going to give us our answer if we were to multiply these two back together. Now, we want to do this. We want to break it down into the square root of 5 and the square root of 10,000 because the square root of 10,000, do you know what that is? Do you know what number you multiply by itself to get you to 10,000? Well, it must be 100 because 100 times 100, that would give you 4 zeros. So 100 times 100 would be 10,000. So this problem, well, we're going to get 100 times the square root of 5 because the square root of 10,000 we solved to get 100 and we've got our final answer. Whenever we've got a problem like this with our large numbers, powers of 10 in specific, we're going to break it down into a, well, we're going to take out the first number and then we're going to get our power of 10 after that so that we can reduce to find our lowest answer. Let's look at another one. Here we have the square root of 700 million. It looks like it could be a complicated answer, but it's really not that complicated because we know we're going to take the square root of 7. We're going to find our power of 10. Well, we must multiply 7 times 100 million to get to 700 million. This problem almost takes just as long to write out all the zeros as it does to solve it. Now the square root of 100 million, if you look at this, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 zeros. So the square root of that must have exactly half as many zeros. It must have 4 zeros. So a 1 followed by 4 zeros, 1, 2, 3, and 4, that must be the number 10,000. So our answer, 10,000 times the square root of 7. We've got our final answer. We could box it. That's all that we have to do for this type of problem where we're simplifying really big numbers. Lesson practice will be on page 270. Make sure you've got your notes complete, and I'll see you during our next class.